Welcome to the Crimson Engine. My name's Rubidium. Today we are talking about a dirty word in the filmmaking industry, which is ego. The unfounded and unsupported belief in your own abilities, talents, creative genius. And I wanted to talk about how essential ego is to beginning your career, and then how dangerous it is when you've started it. When people begin filmmaking, when you have the idea, when you have the inspiration, when you're, college age or in your 20s, or if you start much later, if you're in your 30s and 40s, you believe that your ideas are fantastic. Most people do. But then most people know that they're probably not. Most people know that I've never done this before. I have making films that are going to be judged against people who have been making them for 20, 30, 40 years. And the chance that I'm better than the average person, let alone the chance that what I can direct and produce or write is going to be outstanding, is very, very small, almost minuscule. No one would think, oh, I'm going to, go into the Olympics in the 100 meters and set a world record, never having run before. And yet that is sort of the equivalent of what we do as filmmakers when we begin. We all think our ideas are better, our product is going to be fantastic, we are going to be able to excel at something that we've never done. The average person has that belief, but then kind of tempers it with the fact that, the people around them read their story and we're like, oh, maybe this isn't so great, or they just are far more realistic. Whereas successful filmmakers have this unwavering self-belief in that their movie is going to be the best thing ever and they're going to commit to it and make it happen. And then they have this phenomenal letdown when what they make isn't the best movie ever, as with very few exceptions. The first film, you're learning so much and you're so far from what your vision was because of your resources and your experience that it's a huge letdown. And most people at that point kind of give up. It's only the true egoists that say, this film was great. It was an excellent experience. I've learned so much. My next film will be better. And they dive in and make another one. I'm smiling because I recognize that in myself. And I had to be quite a deluded 20-something when I started writing scripts and making short films and shooting, documentaries, and then eventually making commercials. I really believed that I was going to go somewhere. I was going to be able to make this industry and this craft my career, even though I had no substantiating evidence. I'd chosen to believe. And that ego, without that thinking that I was better than everyone else out there, I never would have started. And unless I just clung to that belief for dear life, I never would have continued. When the first films that I made weren't great, I saw something in them that I really loved, even though they were imperfect. And that kept me going. I don't know how you would plot this on a graph, but you need ego to begin. But the longer you keep it, and you need to have a healthy self-belief, but then you also need to, the other side of that coin, the yin to that yang, is being enough of a realist that you can improve and not just keep making the same bad movie again and again and again. There are people out there that have hundreds of credits, all of their stuff terrible, and they wonder why they never got their due. And it's probably because they had enough ego to start, but not enough ego to get over the new thing. You always need to be evolving as a filmmaker. You always need to be looking at your work with a critical eye. Even your beginner films, even your first things, But you can't let that criticism stop you from wanting to make more. You can't let that your shortcomings mean that you don't redouble your efforts and try harder. So if you were to plot this on a graph, you need a lot of ego at the start. Then as you get better, you need less and less ego in order to, because when you start, in order to keep progressing, and you find these people who are incredibly accomplished that have almost no ego at all. They still enjoy making films, but they don't see it as their vision specifically. They often, praise their collaborators more. These people that are really making amazing films, they say, oh yeah, the cinematographer did all of that. He did great work, and the actors brought a lot of great ideas. And I worked with a screenwriter who put it all together. You see these people that are, whether or not they believe that in real life, or they're just saying it because they don't want to alienate their fan base, but they do seem to become more and more humble as their success increases. And I think this is the secret. You need blind, pure, unadulterated self-belief based on nothing whatsoever when you begin. And then as you learn, you sort of become more and more humble as your ability increases. Where everyone is in that continuum is going to be something that each person needs to decide for themselves. Really, can you see a progression in your work? Is your work getting better? Are you just making the same film or variations of it in different genres, or the same, thing over and over? I knew someone once who had written almost 30 screenplays. None of them had been produced. He wasn't necessarily getting better. He was just doing variations on his theme. And honestly, he must have been enjoying the process of writing these, because each one took him a couple of weeks and he'd been doing it for years and years. That can be really tough because, unlike the directing, screenplay isn't, or usually isn't, considered an art in itself. It's more the blueprint for the building that's going to come. And if the building never gets built, how are you sure that your screenplays are improving? Because you're never getting that critical feedback that you need to be able to improve. Last week on the podcast, I talked about how rare the filmmaking actually is as a filmmaker, and how you want to diversify and aim to learn lessons and grow as a human being in the other things that you do, be it, I think my examples were hiking, martial arts, and sailing. You definitely can draw a lot of confidence knowing that you have mastered something else. So I do think that, to reiterate the point from last week, having other things that you can do a lot of, get immediate feedback on, and improve with, then achieve some measure of mastery in other things, gives you a lot of confidence that you will improve eventually in your filmmaking and your storytelling. But you also need to have that, unrealistic self-belief. And honestly, I think different cultures encourage this sort of delusion more than others. I think America has it in spades, much more than Australia, the country I grew up in. I think American kids are encouraged to believe in themselves, even when, the likelihood of the outcome is almost non-existent, because people don't want to squash any dream. They want to leave the door open. The downside of that is you can end up with people who are these eternal dreamers, these Don Quixotean, Lamanchian figures who are, still thinking they're going to make it as an actor as they're hitting their 60s. It has happened. The lottery happens as well, with much more frequency. So I think you need to give yourself 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 years. Go really hard with total dedication to your projects, and not look up, not look back, and not judge until you've done something that you set out to do. Then you kind of take the blinders off, look at it with a critical eye, you like engage it and see what it actually has done, what it's produced, what people's reaction to it have been, and then re-chart your next goal. I think it's called the Dunning-Kruger effect, which is very applicable to this. The Dunning-Kruger effect is that people with very little knowledge of a subject have much more confidence or rate themselves higher in that subject because they don't know what they don't know. You know, before I'd ridden a motorcycle, I thought I would be an excellent motorcycle rider. And when I got my license, I thought I was a fantastic motorcycle rider. But then you go out onto the road and you realize how little you don't know, and your confidence sort of, plummets. And for good reason, that encourages you to be more careful, and probably the reason that I'm here today. So we do need some of that confidence mixed with that self-reflection. But what I think paralyzes a lot of people is they try and self-reflect at the same time as they're doing the thing that they're trying to do. So if you're, when you've raised the money, hired the actors, hired the crew, booked the location, got the camera, done the prep, and you're on set, that is not the time to be wondering, can I do this even? Am I even a good director? That is the time to focus extremely closely on what's at hand and what you need from the resources that you have. There's traditionally a break period of like up to a month after you've wrapped before you start editing, so that you don't take any of the energy, the crazy, frantic, sometimes defeated, manic energy of the set into the edit room. You need a little time to step back, change perspectives, and start watching the film as an audience rather than someone who has to get everyone where they need to be to get what you want. I hope this helps someone out there. It really is like a dance. You do need that ego. You need that self-belief based on nothing whatsoever. You just need to have that main character syndrome where you think, well, everyone should get together and give up their time and their money to tell my story. Why not? They should. That takes a big ego to do that, but it can't be so big that you look at it and a voice inside you tells you, oh, this could be better, or you did this wrong, and you say, no, nothing's wrong, it's perfect, it's a perfect movie, I'm a genius. When confronted by the opposite, you need to look at it and say, there's something really great here. Yes, I could have done things better. Yes, I made mistakes, but I learned from them, and my next one will be better again. I really do think that there's a ton of examples of Luc Besson or Francis Ford Coppola, of these kind of writer, director, producers who started really, really young, in their late teens, and their first movies were pretty bad, but they did have an energy in them, and they had this maniacal self-belief, so that by the time they'd finished their first movie, even if it flopped, they didn't even care. They were on to the next thing again. They had such a unique energy about them. They had this driving desire to leave a mark on the world and express their ideas that had come to them, that they were just indefatigable. It is something you need to find your own balance with, but you certainly shouldn't regard ego as a poisonous, dangerous thing. Yes, it can destroy careers at some point, but all those people had a career to destroy. All of them got there by having great talents and believing in those talents. They just went a little too far. I hope this helped someone have the courage to tell their story. Thank you very much for watching. I will see you next time.